Dear human being, beloved soul, I welcome you to my podcast series, Conversations with the Universe. After a near-death experience, my perception of our human existence changed profoundly. I became more sensitive, with all our known senses. I feel more intensely, see people with different eyes, and often take a different perspective on life and our challenges. In my books, I share these altered perspectives and all the knowledge that has flowed through me since my near death and thus record it. For all those who are searching for something more, for the meaning of our existence here on Mother Earth. And it is now a great pleasure for me to share this knowledge with you in this way as a supplement to my books. This season I am dedicating myself to my very first work, the basics of being. I wish you many wonderful insights on your path. Thank you. Love.
First, a quick note about my network, SPINE. This is short for the Spiritual Network and is the first global social media network for holistic knowledge, awareness, spirituality, and above all, a bridge between providers and seekers. I invite you to join us and connect with me there. Feel free to look around, find lots of podcasts, events, healers, but above all, lots of inspiration to grow. It's free. But now let's start with today's episode. We begin with the last major part of the basics of being, the roof of being. The energy of the source is timeless, boundless, and simultaneously omnipresent in all its power. It is not bound to space, time, or form, but forms the origin of all levels of existence. From it arise all forms of expression of existence, which manifest themselves on different levels of consciousness. Each level represents merely a condensation, a variation, or a perspective of the same primal force. This energy is the source of all life, the source of all phenomena, and thus the basis of all being. There is no being without this force, just as there is no form that is not permeated by it. Every form, regardless of its density or complexity, is an expression of this energy because it emerged from it. Form is never separate from the source, but merely a temporary manifestation of its activity. At the center itself, at the source, there is a state of absolute balance. There is no lack, no tension, no polarity. This state is not stagnation, but a living, completely tension-free existence in which all potentials are present simultaneously without competing with each other. However, an impulse arises from this perfect balance, the impulse of creation, the desire to experience itself in infinite diversity. This impulse is movement from within itself. It is not lack that drives this movement, but the pure curiosity of being about itself. This first movement creates its first form, the soul. The soul is the first individualization of the source. It is still free of separation, but already carries within it the possibility of experience. It is the link between pure unity and the later multiplicity of forms. Within it, the knowledge of the source is still present, even if it increasingly recedes into the background. As the movement continues, the energy increasingly moves away from the state of perfect balance and begins to condense into ever denser levels. In this process, different forms of matter arise. All matter is thus the result of this movement and simultaneous removal from the original state of purity. At the extreme point of this movement, furthest from the balance of the source, the gross material world arises. Bodies, sensory organs, emotions, perception. Here, energy experiences its greatest density and apparent limitation. At the same time, it is precisely these sensory and emotional experiences that make it possible to consciously experience the diversity of the source. The material plane is not the waste product of creation, but its most intense space of experience. In it, the source can recognize itself in contrast, polarity, and individuality. Thus, the ultimate expression of the power of the source becomes its greatest opportunity, the possibility of regaining balance and consciously experiencing wholeness. The experience of a pronounced ego consciousness brings energy into a state of apparent powerlessness and separation. But it is precisely from this powerlessness that the strongest impulse to return arises. The experience of separation, limitation, and distraction acts as a permanent call to consciousness to oppose it. Consequently, reconnection to unity is only possible through the conscious concentration of the mind in the body. Expansion does not happen through escape to the outside, but through contemplation within. The principle of the cosmos is not the external, but the internal. All paths to consciousness, therefore, inevitably lead to a return to the self. In this inner peace, the mind experiences itself as part of the whole. It recognizes unity with everything without losing its individuality. In this state, creative power is not recognized as an external entity, but as a living expression in one's own being. The mind recognizes itself as the creator of forms and at the same time as an expression of creative power. Movement is the motor of all forms of being. It creates diversity, experience, and development. But every diversity creates imbalance. This imbalance constantly strives to return to unity. Balance is not a moral principle, but a cosmic law. The state of balance in the source is not a static state, but a living order of complete freedom. Order and freedom are not opposites here, but two aspects of the same principle. It is only through movement that perception, experience, and knowledge arise. With each further condensation of energy, the perception of separation increases. However, this separation is not a flaw in the system, but a necessary tool of experience. Without separation, there would be no recognition. Without limitation, no perception. Without contrast, no awareness. The material world is therefore not the opposite of the source, but its mirror under maximum conditions. In this context, the human body is not an obstacle to spiritual knowledge, but its most precise instrument. Through it, consciousness experiences itself not abstractly, but concretely. Pain, joy, fear, desire, and longing are not disturbances on the path to unity, but milestones. They indicate where movement has arisen and where balance is sought. Emotions are condensed movements of energy in consciousness. They arise where inner impulses are not in harmony with inner balance, or where old movements have not yet found closure. Every emotion, therefore, carries information within it. If it is suppressed, the imbalance intensifies. If it is consciously perceived, balance begins. The mind often tries to control, evaluate, or correct these processes. But control is a product of separation. Balance does not come through control, but through awareness. As soon as an impulse is fully seen, it loses its compelling force. Recognition is therefore not an active intervention, but an act of allowing. Awareness brings movement to rest without suppressing it. In this stillness, inner balance reveals itself as an ever-available state. It does not depend on external circumstances, but on the inner alignment of the mind. The more strongly the mind is anchored in the body, the clearer this experience becomes. The return to the source is not linear and does not happen through effort. It happens in waves. Phases of clarity alternate with phases of entanglement. However, every entanglement already carries within it the possibility of liberation, as it reinforces the desire for balance. Resistance prolongs this process. Acceptance accelerates it. The longing for unity is not an emotional need, but a structural principle of being. It operates on all levels of existence, regardless of whether it is consciously recognized or not. Even where life seems to work against itself, this longing continues to operate in the background. Balance does not mean dissolving all opposites, but placing them in a conscious relationship. Light does not exist without shadow, movement without stillness, form without emptiness. Unity is not created through elimination, but through integration. In this understanding, responsibility is redefined. Responsibility does not mean guilt, but awareness of one's own power. Every human being is a node in the field of movement. Every thought sends out a vibration. Every feeling changes the field. Every action releases resonances. Unconscious creation seems chaotic because its causes are not recognized. Conscious creation seems clear because cause and effect coincide. In this state, action arises without inner resistance. It is neither reactive nor compensatory, but fluid. The state of inner balance is not a distant goal, but a reference point that is available at any time. It is the quiet center amid all movement. The more often consciousness aligns with it, the less compensation is needed on the outside. The Trinity of balance works continuously. Movement creates form. Form creates experience. Experience calls for return. This principle is not moral, not religious, and not bound to any belief system. It is structural. It works independently of knowledge, conviction, or intention. Those who recognize it can work with it consciously. Those who ignore it are moved by it. Whenever impulses are set unconsciously, they create tensions that must be balanced at a later time and in a different place. Conscious creation, on the other hand, happens in harmony with the flow of energies. Such impulses already carry their balance within them as they vibrate in the rhythm of the cosmos. This gives rise to responsibility for every thought, feeling, and action. Every thought, every feeling, and every deed acts as a creative impulse. Anything that does not arise in harmony with the flow of life will demand balance, not as punishment, but as an invitation to return to the balance of the source. In this way, life itself becomes a school of balance, not as a test, but as a constant reminder of one's own wholeness. Every situation carries within it the question of where balance is lacking. And every conscious answer brings being one step closer back to itself. Thank you again for your attention. Carpe Vitam. Thank you very much for listening, and I would like to remind you to join our community Spine. We are a community that wants to help you live a healthier life, practice your spirituality, and expand your consciousness. We help you find and connect with healers around the world, and we help you give your life a new meaning in different ways. We are Spine, connections that help.